So she's actually leading off our stories for today with a story coming out of Yale University. So
yeah, no, you guys may have seen this over the weekend. It's made a lot of headlines. GMA just did a little something about it where a Yale student fell asleep studying. Yale student fell asleep studying outside of her dormitory, and another student called the police on her. There's some racial implications. We want to show you this real quick. Take a look at this.
It's like, you have got to be kidding me. It has to be a joke, you know.
I have every right to call the police. You cannot sleep in that room.
Once we verify that you're a resident here, then we'll be on our way.
I used the key to show that that was my apartment. I felt like that should have been enough for them. I don't think that if I looked differently, that it would have gone any further than that. Someone who uses the police in the way that Sarah used the police should be held accountable. There needs to be punitive measures for people who, you know, act out of racially motivated, you know, bias. None of this is really new. None of it is shocking. And every day someone is treated with racial bias. Every day people are being approached by the police, receiving ridiculous treatment from the police.
All right, so there you have it. A black student fell asleep outside. A white student called the police. And what's interesting here is that she had to prove to police for 20 minutes, according to her video, because she taped it. She had to prove to them for 20 minutes after she used her room key to open her door that, no, I am in fact a student here. I live here. I belong here. She had to explain her presence at the school that she's paid. And Yale isn't cheap. She had to explain her presence at a school that's pretty expensive. You know, this is a conversation that a lot of people are talking about right now. You know, it's a tough conversation whenever we talk about race. But it's like eating your broccolis or eating that disgusting salad that I eat every day just so I can fit into these little dresses. It's something that you have to do so that we can probably make some movement. You know, we want you to join in the conversation. We want all of your friends to join in on this conversation too. So you're watching us here on Extra Shot. Why don't you share this video? Go ahead and share this video. Get more people in the conversation, because this is a conversation that our community, our state, our nation needs to have. Again, this has happened at Yale. Yale did come back and say that we do not condone this type of behavior. They were really quick about speaking out about this, but it's just, it's unfortunate that she had to explain her position in life. Like, no, 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 I'm a student here.
I can remember so many times falling asleep in our common area, studying for specifically history tests and psychology tests. I don't know why.
Those are the
I would just fall asleep.
And this story has everything to do with history and psychology as well. So way to put it all together.
I didn't even remember that.
Full circle. So let's see. This is nothing new. Milton Woodbury says Yale PD has been like this for years. I saw another comment that they were like, this is my hometown. And it's surprising because, you know, I say it all the time. I'm new here. So coming out to California, I came from the South, grew up in Arkansas, came from Louisiana. I was so excited to move to California to get away from all of the racial implications, because in the deep South, sometimes it's really thick with the racism.
This is true.
And it's just unfortunate to me. It was like mind-boggling to me, and a lot of people here that, no, racism is everywhere, first of all, and no one is immune from it. So that's why I'm so excited about having the conversation so that we can move forward.
The thing that blows my mind is that a lot of these incidents lately, number one, they're on tape. And that is really a key factor in how this all comes together, because if she said, oh, and it took so long for me to explain my situation, that's just a story. But when it's on tape and you see, and the tone, that girl, the tone of I'm calling the police, then her story makes total sense because she has the video to back it up. The intonations with people's voice, because, you know, a lot of this stuff with racism, as if it's expressed explicitly or even subconsciously, a lot of that happens with people every day. But with the video, it really helps to explain what's going on, people's intention, their assumptions, the reaction, the overreaction, the underreaction. It's all on tape, and it helps to tell the story and why she's outraged. And my gut reaction to this too, which is, this is absolutely absurd. Do you know when you call the police? When there's a crime, when you need help, when something is so over the top and you need someone with a badge and authority to step in and help you out. who's calling the police over situations like this?
Especially at Yale.
Yeah, exactly.
And
the police are not there for this.
Right.
Like
I get the see something, say something approach that maybe a lot of people are defending her for.
Yeah.
And you want to be safe on a college campus. You never know who is going to be in a dorm room. Somebody could have snuck in. But I think sometimes you have to use your better judgment.
Right.
Yeah.
But people are in here saying
Same thing, right?
they are exactly saying the same thing.
Yeah.
There was no better judgment in this one.
Well,
This is a student in your building.
Yeah, Cheryl brings up a point that we can talk to. Hey, Cheryl. She said, could it be that someone didn't recognize her and it's not just about race? I want to pose that to you guys. What do you think? Do you think it's just like, I don't recognize you and it has nothing to do with race?
But the second part, when she has her key and they're still questioning her for 20 minutes, come on. As a parent, I would be, if that were my kid, I would be furious. Like, that's where I'm like,
do you think if this student, her picture's behind us, or if, well, it was. Okay, there she goes. Her picture's behind. Do you think had she been white, would this have happened? Would someone have called the police on her for sleeping?
Speculate.
And then
She
would have had to explain her presence to the police for 20 minutes after opening her door to her dorm room.
You always assume people's best intentions. So let's just say she didn't know who she was and was concerned because there's an unknown person that's living right next or is in her space. But if the person then explains, no, I live here, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it shows.
Once someone has an explanation, then if that's not good enough, then it's so not good enough that now you're going to call the police. Now there's a whole other layer of assumption because now you're talking about, why would you call the police in that situation? Because you're worried about your safety. Let's be real about that, right? So now she's like, I don't know you, and now I'm scared enough to call the police. And all she is just she's there, and we all know what's going on here. I mean, and in her tone, you have to listen to the tone.
Yeah, it was so entitled.
The tone is that your story does not qualify, and I'm bringing somebody else in here because they're going to clean this all up. There's a lot of assumptions there that are sometimes under the surface, but right there, it's there for you to listen to.
We have a lot of people chiming in on this. Christina Ortega just commented, it's everywhere in response to your comment about racism being just deep south or localized. She says it is everywhere. She said, I saw 2 white guys approach several outside tables at Zocalo, which is on, 18th and Capitol?
Yeah.
It's right in Midtown.
One of my favorite restaurants.
We go there all the time.
I went there once before kids. Somewhere down there where all the people are having fun.
The white gentleman said, that's field work. You belong in the fields, etc. to any Mexican-looking people. She said she herself was called a sellout for sitting with her mother, who looks more stereotypically Mexican than she does. And so even in Sacramento, we're dealing with race issues that are not just black and white, but brown and anyone that's not.
Just so people can see better.
Thank you.
She was hiding behind flowers.
Sorry.
Well, growing up in Ohio, Lebanese and American, people called me Oreo all the time. Like, it was like, hey, Oreo, how are you doing? So it does happen everywhere.
Yeah.
But for me as a parent, my son is 11, this is a teaching moment to say, some people think like this, and you need to make sure that you see everyone on the same playing field. And if you see something like this happening, you need to stick up for that person. So that's what my take on these videos. See it, say it, and have that conversation.
And your actions have to back up what you believe. Let me just talking about the Deep South.
Yeah.
So I went to grad school in Mississippi.
Oh yeah.
And as I was looking around for apartments, I went to this one. This guy shows me the apartment, and I'm about to leave, and I'm considering, okay, this apartment looks pretty nice. It's in town. And then I just casually am looking over, and there's people moving in down the way. So I'm like, oh, neighbors, who lives here? And the guy literally said, hey, man, listen up. By law, I have to rent to them, but it's not going to be a problem. Literally to my face.
Oh, my gosh.
And I said, whoa, what are you talking about?
Right.
He's like, no, don't worry about that. And I'm like, I'm like, sir, honestly, I really don't care, and I'm not renting. I'm not renting from you.
Right,
so
I'm
I
not
was
going to
out
give
of
you my
there.
money.
I mean, it was fine apartment, but you don't. So what was I going to do in that situation? Am I going to have a talk about my feelings versus his feelings? That's not going to go anywhere. Right. But my choice at that point was, I'm not going to hand over my money to this guy because I don't work that way. That's not my life. That's not what I believe. And his belief is that because we were the same color, that you can have that. I can talk to you this way. It's this and that to me was shocking in my face.
Yeah.
So my choice was to not rent, and I rented somewhere else, and it was an amazing experience.
Good.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, sometimes it really depicts the character of a person who's like, okay, I see wrong happening in front of me. It doesn't affect me at all, but I know right from wrong. Do I take a stand, or do I just let it happen? And I think we can apply that logic to so many cases where you see right or wrong. Do you take a stand for right, or do you just sit back? I think Martin Luther King said that, you know, when you sit back and you just let it happen, you're as complicit as the person who is doing wrong.
Oh, yeah.
It's never wrong to do the right thing.
Yep.
Hey,
Did you-
the cameraman
do you see
said
what Jessica
it's
said?
never wrong
Go
to do
for
the
it.
right thing.
She was looking for a house in Sac a couple years ago, and the landlord straight up said, hey, you got the apartment because you're the first white people to apply. She flipped him off and left.
Wow.
So it definitely, to what you're saying.
Right. I mean, as a society, it's going to take everybody. It's going to take everybody and your actions and your interactions with others. That's one of the key things, is that some of these beliefs and opinions come from just the lack of interaction with people that are different from you. And all it takes is a couple of close relationships to change your mind about a lot of things, to see things from the other side, to understand. And so you should never fault people for their beliefs as a whole instinctively, because perhaps they just haven't had those interactions to then just to expand their horizons.
When it happens in Sacramento specifically, we have a conversation every time something like this happens about how people feel like when they move here, as one of the most diverse places in the United States, you shouldn't be dealing with racism to the level that we feel it here. But there was a consensus among a lot of us that were talking that you feel like a blindfold has come off after you see the Stephon Clark case, after you hear about different things that happen in our town, and you're saying, wow, what looks like a diverse town is really
it's diverse.
It's not that diverse mentally.
Exactly. I think
That's
that's it.
what
You
it
can have
is.
all of these different cultures, all of these different ethnicities, all these different races, and still have prejudice. I think it's racism at the root of it. It's prejudice. When you look at someone, and it's really hard to combat prejudice. When I look at someone, you completely judge them without hearing from them, without knowing anything about them. They don't even have to say hi, and you kind of make a decision about their, of course, race, because you can see that, or their class, or their rank, education, things like that. When you see someone, you automatically make those predetermined judgments, and it's unfortunately at the core of racism, and it's going to be kind of hard to kind of get rid of that. But if we talk about it,
Now,
if
when
we
the kids
talk
are
about it, it's
younger,
like, don't always judge a book by its cover. I'm a black girl sleeping inside of Yale. Just think I'm smart because I'm sleeping in Yale.
Deborah Felix brings up this idea of, before it was a matter of, are people that aren't white as educated as everyone else? And now that's not even a question. You have everyone on the same playing field for the most part. And why is it still happening that at Yale, an institution where everyone is on the same playing field, that something like this is happening? And then another person chimed in commenting that this, they believe, would be an ongoing situation, and that there's no way that they couldn't have interacted before if they live in the same dorm. There must have been something brewing there that caused the student to lash out in this way.
Right.
And in the GMA story that we saw this morning, this is not the first time that particular student has called the police on someone of color.
Well, then that's a pattern, and the school needs to take action.
It is a pattern with this particular student. There was another guy, and they had reaction from him, and he was like, she said that she felt threatened by him. And she was like, I feel threatened. I'm going to call the police.
I didn't even know that, but you see what I'm saying?
It came up in the comments,
Yeah. It's just unfortunate that she felt threatened. And she felt threatened just by their presence. And I get sometimes, you know, I have an older brother, and we would talk about, you know, sometimes when you walk past cars, you can hear people locking their doors.
Wow.
And it was just like, oh, he's a black dude. He was like, I don't know what he thought was, I don't know what his thought was, but I initially thought, like, as an adult, I was like, oh, they thought she was finna, like, break in on them or do a carjacking or something. But it's like, you can hear that click, click, let me lock my door when a black person walks by. It's those little nuances that, like, oh, okay, so I'm a threat to you just by being here.
Right. So, Trevor Frew, he is a great commenter today. If we had an award for most insightful comments, you would get it today, sir. He's saying today, college is usually a great place to learn about other cultures, but there are a lot of different groups pushing their differences instead of finding the things that they have in common. Yes, Trevor.
I'm clapping for you, my friend.
Right?
Yes. If we
I
all
agree.
focus on the common thread, we can all find something that we can celebrate together instead of, like, what makes us different.
Well, a couple people said, too, in the comments that we were dancing around the subject, if she were white, would we call the police? Well, in this case, that person, if she were white, probably wouldn't have because she has a pattern of being racist.
Right.
So my follow-up question is, what is the school going to do about the person that's calling the police? Because college is for learning, so she needs to learn the wrong of her actions.
And they may have some authority to do something because it's, you know, everyone has the right to their own opinions and how they and what they think and why they think.
Yep.
But for another student, if you're calling the police to interact when they're not doing anything wrong on a constant basis, you really are interfering with their ability to learn and to go to school, because the interaction with the police, even mundane interactions with the police are, you know, they get your heart rate going.
It's stressful.
It's stressful. It's humiliating. So that student can be a problem because she's really interfering with, because they're not doing anything wrong.
Yeah, she's
That's
not
the whole
doing anything
point.
wrong. And as an African American, to have the police called on you, you think, especially in this day and time, we have so many of these instances that are caught on camera where people are interacting with the police and they're still losing their life on camera. It's like, it was just a misunderstanding and they're dying. And I think in the interview on GMA this morning, she talked about, she remembers what happened with Sandra Bland, and she was like, anytime I have an interaction with the police, I'm always going to film it because Sandra Bland mysteriously died in police custody.
Oh,
yeah. I saw your face.
Yeah, I was like, they're trying to figure out the story.
There's so many names. It's like you have to figure out who's who.
Right.
So just calling the police on this student caused her so much emotional trauma because she had to immediately think, oh, I might not make it home.
Yep. That's exactly it. Ronnie Stinson is making an interesting point, saying there's a sense of entitlement with non-people of color, people who are not of color, addressing anyone of color as if they don't have the right to be in that space. As if the white Yale student said, this is my school, this is my dorm, and your mere presence is a threat to me. That
is unfortunate.
It's so unfortunate and sickening.
I just had another thought. I was like, that applies to some other ideologies. And we'll say for another headshot. I'll pitch that idea to you guys later.
Okay, so we're going to change subjects at this time. Thank you for bringing all of your comments. Yeah. And another shout out to Trevor Frew. I can't even say your last name. Frew. Yeah. Sorry, for being a great commenter. I will learn your last name. And Jessica Downey and Ronnie, thank you all for your comments.
She should put a blanket over her and let her take her nap. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, these are great.
Support these napping students. That was from Casey. I support that thought. I want to nap right now. I've been up since 10:30. Let's talk about that.
Thanks so much for watching the ABC 10 Information Network. If you want to see more stories just like this one, all you've got to do is click subscribe.